Hi, my name is Eloise Short and I'm an illustrator, textile designer and artist based in the Blue Mountains, Australia. A couple of years ago, I illustrated a book called Leonard the Lyrebird, and today I'm going to show you how I draw a lyrebird and help you draw one too. This video is suitable for children 8 to 13 years. Okay, so before we start our male lyrebird drawing, you're going to need a few things: a rubber, a black pen or felt pen, whatever you have in your home, a pencil. This is a 2B pencil, but whatever you have in your home is fine, and an A4 piece of paper. I've drawn some lines to show the size of an A4 piece of paper on my piece of paper. So the way we'll do this is that we'll break this drawing into 3 sections: a sketch, and then we'll add some detail, and then we'll draw it up in pen. So I'll demonstrate each section for you, and when I get to the end of each section, I'll let you have time to do your drawing. So to start, we'll break our piece of paper up into 4. So we'll have a line going across at the halfway point horizontally, and another line coming down vertically at the halfway point. And that's just so we can roughly work out where to start our drawing. So next, we're going to take the shape of our lyrebird and break it up into recognizable shapes. And that's going to help us get the right body shape for our lyrebird. So for our head, we are going to start by drawing lightly, not too heavily, because eventually we'll rub out these pencil lines, but we'll start by drawing an oval for our lyrebird's head. Next, we'll add a long triangle towards the bottom on the left-hand side of our oval, and that's going to be our lyrebird's beak. Then we'll add a tube shape coming off the bottom right side of our lyrebird's head. And then we will draw a sort of an eye shape for the main bit of our lyrebird's body. So you can see that's the shape of a human's eye. And next, we'll draw a bit of a fan shape over at the back, and that's going to be the start of our lyrebird's tail. And then just on this halfway point at the bottom of our body, we are going to draw what sort of looks like maybe an upside down ear shape. And then in front of that, we'll add another one. So that's going to be the start of our 2 lyrebird's legs. So next we'll come back and draw the main bit of the legs. And when we get to the feet, for now, we are just going to draw triangle shapes. So I'm drawing one leg in a more forward position and another one that's a little more upright. And we add another triangle at the bottom there. Okay, next to the feathers, which is one of the things, actually, not the thing they're most famous for, but one of the things they're famous for are these spectacular tail feathers. So let's start drawing the first feather. And we're sort of creating a curved shape at the top and bringing it down and joining it in with our fan. And our second detailed feather is going to be tucked in behind that, just popping out from behind it. Now, lyrebirds have about 12 white feathers that they fan out, but we probably can't fit 12 into our drawing without getting too many lines. So we're going to draw about 6 of these feathers, and they come out past the lyrebird's head, and they sort of form a wave shape. So they tuck back into the lyrebird, this fan area we've made over here. So let's draw about 6 of those, all slightly different. And then lastly, there are 2 other special feathers that don't fan out in the same way, and they can come in here and down here. Okay, so next we'll draw our eye shape, which is fairly close to our beak and sort of in line with the top of the beak going towards the center of the beak. And then just a line to show where the beaks separate. Now, I'm going to give you a few minutes to draw that. Minutes to draw that. to draw that. Okay, so now that you have your rough sketch of your lyrebird, we are going to add a little more detail in. So let's start by smoothing out the shape of our lyrebird to make it look a little more like a lyrebird. So I'm going to soften this curve where I've drawn the oval for the head and the tube for the neck. I'm going to soften that curve by changing that line to join those up, and I'm going to soften these lines here by joining the neck up with a curve there, and I'm going to do the same thing for the beak, just soften that line slightly, and the same for the legs. Put a nice curve in there. And then we're going to come down to the feet, and we're going to add a curve in at the bottom of each foot, and then we are going to round off those toes and soften all those curves there too. Then we'll add a little toe in behind, 3 in fact. Do the same thing on this foot, and add a little toenail or claw for each of those feet. And we'll just round out our lyrebird's head shape a little bit. And then we'll come back in over at the start of the tail and add in a little curve there. And then start to introduce some feather shapes to our tail, so little rounded feather shapes. And then let's mark in where we want to put in a wing. So it's another curved line almost towards the bottom of our body, but not quite. So let's add some detail into that. Let's add some feather shapes. They're just curves. Few curves. And they can start to get bigger and longer as we go. And I might bring some curves in over the top of the body there. And that's going to be feathers coming in from the other side to join this front wing. And we'll keep going with some longer feathers. And then we're going to have some very long feathers at the back of the wing here. So I'm just drawing curved lines that are longer now till we get to the top. And then I will do the same thing for the tail. Add some feathery shapes in there. And then some more curves around the back of the body, a couple more at the front, and some around the eye. And I'm going to add a line around the eye as well, just for a little bit of detail, and a little nostril. Next, we'll add just some little dots, just almost like a type of shading, just so our bird looks a little bit more three-dimensional. And I'm going to put some of the dots on our bird's leg that's behind our front leg, so that it's a little bit darker than our front leg. And we're going to add some of those dots to the back of our bird. And we'll add some scales to our bird's legs. And some dots. And maybe a few more little feathers around our bird's head. And next we'll come back and add some detail to these feathers. So lyrebirds have unusual markings. They have these bands, these dark bands around these two special tail feathers. So let's draw them in almost as a triangle, and then just lightly fill them in with your pencil. And we'll do that all the way to the top. And then when we get to the very top, that's actually going to be filled in with our pen. And the same thing for the one behind. We'll add the triangles, only a couple because we're going to run out of room. And then this will be coloured in. So then we look at these fanned out feathers. Now they have a lot of detail on them. So they actually are made up of lots of little feathers that spread out like this. So we are going to add all these lines in on all of these feathers. When it starts to get a bit too crowded with all the line work in the middle, you don't have to draw all of them. You can leave some of them out where they start to overlap too much. And all these little lines are going to stay tucked in behind this main feather here, okay, because this one is at the front. And then our last two little feathers, which don't have all the tiny feathers on them, they are just going to tuck in there. Okay, so now that that line work is all drawn with our pencil, I'm going to let you guys have some time to do that, and then we'll come back and add some pen. Okay, now that we've got all of our line work in, we're going to draw this up in pen and rub our pencil line work out afterwards. So let's start with our lyrebird's beak. And then come down and draw the main line of our lyrebird's body. So you can see I am not drawing that line totally solid. If I need to break to change the angle of my hand, then I just break and start again. It doesn't matter if they join up completely or not. I'm just drawing those little curves in there for the feathers coming in from the top. And we might come back and draw our lyrebird's back leg. And add our little claws and our little toes behind. And then our front leg. And our little toes behind. Then we might draw our tail. So we'll start by working up the side and drawing in those feather shapes up the side. And then we'll come back in and do the same thing along the bottom. And then add those feather shapes in along the top. And then we'll add them from the bottom. My feathers are not all joining up perfectly, they don't have to. Little bits of broken line here and there look good. And then we'll come back in and do the same thing for our wing. So just adding in those curly shapes to represent some feathers. And then starting to make them a little bit longer as we go along our wing. And adding in some little ones at the top where they start to curl over to the other side of the lyrebird's body. And then we will add in these long ones. So joining up with these ones that were coming in from over the top. and some little short ones in there, and then a couple of nice long ones down the bottom here. Change your angle of your arm if it makes it easier. Or you can move your paper around, which I won't do so that I don't ruin what you can see. But if you need to move your paper around to make it easier, then you go ahead and do that. So now I'm just adding in a little bit of small feather detail up the neck and towards the lyrebird's head. And then we'll add in our lyrebird's eye. So it's pretty much a circle, maybe a little bit more like a human eye, more of an oval, but we will leave a little bit of white inside our eye, which is always to represent light reflecting off our eyeball. And then I'm going to put a line in around our lyrebird's eye, and then add in some feathers, little tiny feathers around that eye. And I'm actually going to start adding in some dots now too. So the dots are to represent the feathers, but they also work like shading if you want to show a darker area. So the dots can touch each other, they can overlap towards the bird's neck, the side of the neck, and then they can start to spread out more as you move away from the outside of the drawing. And we'll add in some dots at the back of our lyrebird, overlapping again along our outline, and spreading out a little bit more as they get to the bird's belly. And we might even put a few dots in around our feathers just for interest. And then we'll do some dots on the leg that is behind, overlapping again. A few more dots in there. And then we might do our scales on our bird's leg. So they're sort of like the feathers, they're a curved line as well. And then as we get to the bottom, we might turn them into dots too. Okay, so that body is starting to look good now. Put a little bit more detail in around some of those feathers if you like. And we might now look at these feathers. So let's start with this big feather at the top. at the front. And let's draw that line in. Now remember, if it's too hard to draw that all in one go, you can lift your pen off and start again. And it doesn't have to join up perfectly. You can leave a little gap there. And then let's dot this area in so it looks similar to our other darker areas. And then we'll draw in our other dark markings. These are almost like triangles. So let's just draw them in. I'm drawing them in lines. Okay, and maybe add some more dots into that one. And then we'll do the other matching feather that is tucked in behind. So let's draw our triangles. And then do our dotted area again. All right, and coming up to our last feathers now. So let's start by doing these ones that don't have tiny feathers on them. And we'll make that a little bit thicker at the top because that's how they look in real life. And then we'll draw this one in, make that a little bit thicker at the top. And then we'll start to draw these detailed feathers in. So I'm going to draw all of the lines in first. And then I'm going to come in and put these detailed feathers, smaller feathers in. Now, if you want to start drawing your lyrebird while I finish this detail off, you go right ahead, but there'll also be some time for you to do this at the end if you want to just keep watching me draw it. But I'm just going to keep going, adding the detail of these feathers in. Okay, so now that we've finished adding all that detail into our lyrebird, we are going to rub out the pencil lines underneath. Quite gently so we don't damage our paper. And that is our finished lyrebird. Now, if you would like to colour it in, you can go ahead and do that. Or if you'd like to leave it as a black and white drawing, then that is fine too. So I hope you enjoyed that.